why don't we dive in and I tell you about Late Night with the Devil? And
Tell us.
Hopefully, if you were also confused as to why this movie was doing what it was doing, you might have some clarity. I hope that for you. So Late Night and the Devil, as we said, is from 2024, and it's about a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms, instructed by Cameron Cairns and Colin Cairns. I will say a part of the reason why it was disappointing to me is I love found footage, and this is not really found footage. It's not even pretending to be found footage. It is just, and I'll talk about that. But also, like, there are real occasions in which live TV was this found footage horror. Like, we covered that before. And, like, Ghost Watch, right? So that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Ghost Watch. And this was Ghost Watch if it was, you know, produced with money and not just a news team trying to spook people. So it made me, I was a little sad. But Late Night with the Devil is a gripping, campy horror film set in the 1970s that follows a fictional late night talk show spiraling out of control in a desperate quest for ratings. And the story centers on Jack Delroy, the charismatic but struggling host of Night Owls. And to save his show from sinking, Jack decides to air a special Halloween episode packed with supernatural guests, a parapsychologist, a medium, and a young woman believed to be possessed by demons. Because, of course, on TV, for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, we will talk with the devil. And during the live broadcast, a seance conducted by the mysterious medium Christou of undetermined origin. His accent, I was like, what is this? And that was funny, but it was silly. Triggers real supernatural events, which are at first dismissed as part of the theatrics. But as Lily, the possessed guest, begins exhibiting terrifying behavior, it becomes clear that something truly sinister is happening. And chaos erupts as the demonic presence violently manifests, terrorizing the crew, guests, and viewers, turning the live broadcast into a frantic fight for survival. And the film explores themes of media manipulation, tapping into the 1970s and 1980s satanic panic era, where the media's obsession with the occult led to mass hysteria. And Late Night with the Devil uses this live TV format to build tension, blending fiction and reality to question the ethics of exploiting fear for entertainment. And with an ambiguous ending, the film leaves viewers pondering the consequences of meddling with dark forces and the fine line between entertainment and truth. So I want to talk about the sensational supernatural, which is what we see in the show. It's his last desperate attempt, and he really is at this breaking point that no matter what he does, he always falls just below Carson. Literally, his dying wife talking about how much she loves him, just not enough. So you can see how, like, the desperation can lead a man to do some crazy things, including kind of manipulating things as they go. But for, like, if supernatural things didn't happen, this might have been just honestly a decent show. I don't think it'd be record breaking and rating smashing, but it would have been fun. I think it would have been nice.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you can just be good at something. You don't have to be the best.
Yeah. And it's not, it is not unique in that at that time period, there are a good number of episodes of these talk shows that had supernatural guests. So Jack's decision to air a live seance is a bold move to blur the line between reality and theatrics, and it stirs up real fear and curiosity in his viewers. And the broadcast amps up the drama with perfectly timed scares and shocking twists designed to keep the audience on edge. And as creepy events unfold, Jack and his crew lean into the chaos rather than stopping it, distorting the viewer's sense of what's real for the sake of entertainment. There's a lot of instances of cast, audience, guest being like, we should stop, or this is scary, or we can't, don't go farther than this. And the people in charge being like, no, don't worry about it. And the film taps into our fascination with the occult and how media can influence public perception. By making the supernatural seem so real, Late Night with the Devil raises concerns about the power of the media to deceive and thrill us. And the film also echoes real-life spiritualism, which took off in 1848 thanks to the Fox sisters, Kate and Margaret, who claimed they could communicate with the dead through table rapping, which they would interpret knocking from the spirits. Like, they'd ask the spirits a question, they'd hear a knock, and they'd be like, oh, that means they're hungry. And their eerie seances drew huge crowds and sparked a movement, leading to spiritualist churches and a fascination with contacting the afterlife. We've talked a few times on the Ghouls about the fascination with the occult and how it just like was in vogue at different times in the world. And this is one of those instances. But the hype didn't last forever because Margaret confessed in 1888 that the whole thing was a hoax and that the rapping sounds actually were made by cracking their toe joints. Yeah, really gross. Though she later did try to take back the confession, the sisters still ignited a lasting spiritualist craze, which we still experience. Right? And all the characters in Late Night with the Devil feel really familiar. As we said, they seem really absurd and silly, but that's because nothing is stranger than real life, right?
Yeah.
So think about Carmichael the Conjurer. This is the abrasive skeptic, and he is clearly inspired by James Randi, who is the famous magician and debunker of paranormal claims. Randi, who once exposed illusionist Uri Geller on The Tonight Show. And Uri is one of the people who convinced the CIA that he was a psychic for their projects like Stargate, which we talked about last week. He was like one of the main guys who was like, yeah, I'm a psychic. And he just figured out the system. But Randi went after TV mediums and built a career on revealing frauds. Known for his daring escape acts like Houdini, he turned, like, that was his claim to fame, was being one of these people. And then he turned and founded the James Randi Educational Foundation, JREF. I can't remember what it was in the show, but he had his own organization. And he was offering $1 million to anyone who could prove supernatural abilities under scientific conditions. Just like the film's Carmichael, who also offered a lofty sum to anyone who could prove their mysticism beyond a doubt. Despite numerous attempts, no one ever claimed the prize for either Randi or Carmichael. Right? And Randi exposed numerous frauds, including television faith healer Peter Popoff, who claimed to receive messages from God, but was actually getting information from his wife through an earpiece.
Classic.
Which we kind of see in this too with what is his name? Christou, where we learn that he had someone who was getting the information, which was a classic, tactic, right? So where that would have been the case, except he didn't have an earpiece, he just memorized the details. But Randi's legacy remains a beacon for skeptics and truth-sayers everywhere. Or truth seekers everywhere, and inspired many to question extraordinary claims and seek evidence-based explanations. Like, don't just believe what you see, even though that's what the film is telling you to do. Late Night with the Devil also gives us major Michelle Remembers vibes, which Kaz talked about and we'll talk about. And that is the discredited 1980 book by psychiatrist Lawrence Padzer about his patient Michelle Smith's supposed satanic abuse, which we started covering in our Maxine episode. In the film, Dr. June Ross Mitchell is a parapsychologist with a perfect mix of vulnerability and conviction, and she is joined by Lily, the eerily unsettling girl who shifts between dead-eyed and lively. And Lily's story evokes similar tales sensationalized during the Satanic Panic. Those disproven tales of abuse by a church that wasn't real. Just literally just that. Like, the documentary of her past and how she got here is like right out of the documentaries that were like of the Satanic Panic, where they're like, this Satan wants you. And then Christou in Late Night with the Devil seems inspired by the many man from India clairvoyants who captivated early 20th century America. And one such figure, Professor Stanley, offered psychic readings for 50 cents, claiming to be the only expert in Hindu occult mysteries. And Hindu is spelled incorrectly. Then there was Professor Sidney Elkins, who charged double that and promised to solve all your life's mysteries. Lastly, there was Chiron, which is clever because Chiron's also a Greek character,
okay.
Greek mythology, but he was another man from India who lured clients with flashy newspaper ads. And despite their exotic claims, many of these psychics were eventually exposed as fraud, adding to the air of mystery and skepticism surrounding their practices. I feel like every time there's a new form of media or communication, so like in this case through newspapers, when radio first came on the scene, there's people who are deceiving others, selling, miracle drugs, things like that. And then when TV comes about, they do the same thing. Anytime there's a new thing, it's like, you can't lie on the internet. So those are like the reflections of what is happening in the film, and it makes it really fun. And you can see like where the research was done and how it's a lot of it's tongue in cheek. And I did really enjoy that part. But I found that going in, my expectations were different, and so I was really disappointed because I felt like I ordered a found footage film and all I got was this highly produced one. So I love found footage films. We talk about this all the time. So Late Night with the Devil initially had me hooked with this premise of a mysterious master tape and backstage footage that would reveal the truth behind that fateful night. If you start a title card of a film with like, this is never before seen footage that will reveal what actually happened, I'm in, baby. You got me. Like, I don't know how you figured it out, right? It's a very classic found footage setup. But unfortunately, the film's cinematography falls flat in delivering the raw, immersive scares that are typical of that subgenre. And it never feels like we're watching something forbidden or accidentally captured. Like everything felt intentional, and that felt misleading. Just tell me that. Just don't make pretend that it's found footage. And the only moments that come close are the clips from the documentary about Lily's childhood in the cult of Braxis, which is styled after the Satan wants you kind of idea. But even that leaves a sour taste with its overly edited, almost AI-generated imagery. Arguably, there are, I think they admitted to 2 images being AI-generated. I disagree. Okay. Those things were heavily AI-generated. And some of the plot maybe could have been too. And while this mockumentary does nail the absurdity of satanic panic documentaries, it doesn't save the film's overall found footage feel. And as the New York Times review, Late Night with the Devil review, Selling Your Soul for Ratings points out, the footage feels scripted, shot in traditional reverse shot style, making it clear this isn't the rogue handheld camera style that draws you into the chaos of found footage. Like, it doesn't feel like you found this footage and I wasn't allowed to watch it. Looks like
if
I'm
they
watching
marketed
TV.
it differently, you would have had different expectations. Exactly. And probably would have liked it more initially because of that.
It could have just been a TV I don't know. But despite this, I did still enjoy the film's tension and horror, even though I had to accept that it wasn't really found footage anymore. And the gore in the third act is great. And while the exorcism scene was lacking, it was still a fun ride with plenty of twists, especially the theme of can you believe what you see, right? I think the reveal scene and there's like the hypnotism was like peak the film. I was like, this is really the best part of it. Like they did it. Good job, y'all, you know? But then came the final 10 minutes, which to me ruined the whole thing. The movie promised to reveal what happened to Jack Delroy that night, but instead it veers into a strange dream sequence that explains Jack's deal with the devil and his downfall. But it's a dream sequence. How would I get that from a master tape? You know? But so it's pulling us out of the already absurd reality and into Jack's surreal consciousness, and the film completely loses its footing at this point. And when we come back to reality, Jack has killed Lily, and we're robbed of the truth promised in the beginning. Like, somebody else is actually watching the tape, not us, and saw what actually happened with Lily. Because they didn't get transported to its consciousness. We never get to know what actually occurred during that night while Jack was in his mind, spiraling and regretting his life decisions. What was happening on camera? What would have saved the film for me is if the twist was that where we discover Lily wasn't possessed, but rather Jack was the entire time. And that those events we just watched, right? Like after learning that the audience couldn't believe what they saw and that the truth is out there in the footage. Like we have 2 instances of you saw this, you believe this, let's roll the footage. You saw this, you believe this, let's roll the footage. they could have did that again and then revealed that Jack is having this breakdown and it results in him murdering all of the people on camera. That those absurd things we saw, her head in the light and the snapping of necks and all of that could have in some way been him doing those acts. Because like, what happened then? And ultimately, it would make him the infamous host that he had dreamed to become, right? Instead, the film's ending just leaves us hanging, denying us the real reveal we were promised. So that's like my biggest gripe with the film. But I mean, overall, I think now that I understand what it's trying to do, I do appreciate it for the majority of it. And it was a fun time. Like that ending part where it gets gory and it gets silly and it's over the top, that felt worth it. It was a little bit snoozy in the middle. But yeah. And it also like, I feel like we've done that before. The plot of like sell your soul.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I feel like, the end would have been like just cooler if they made it. Because it's like, if you're playing upon the fact that serial killers were such a big deal back then. Like, not that, like, even if you just revealed that like he was a murderer, as you said, like of all of them, that would have made him famous, not how he wanted, but like that would have been like a really good ending. Yeah. And I guess like maybe that's kind of what they did, but we don't get to see it. Yeah. So it's like
they kept me. They missed like one last act.
Yeah.
Which was the truth that I was promised at the beginning.
Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed it more than I expected, because like when you said you didn't love it, I was like, all right, I'm going to brace myself to maybe not like it. And then I was actually like, there were moments where I was genuinely scared, which was cool. I think like 2 instances where like she was possessed, like my face went numb and I was like, I have not experienced that in a minute.
That part when like they're like, let's replay the footage. That also pissed me off, is that it should have stopped at that part and screen grabbed her with her face all distorted, and then that thing could have came at me. But the second I saw his wife back there, I cackled. Literally, my first time watching, I cackled because I was like, that's stupid as hell. That is so dumb. And I know it's predicting, like, because we saw the face, but that could have been the impetus to move forward. And it could have been the jump scare that I deserved. Yeah. And it wasn't. So I feel some type of way. See genuinely why people were really hype about it. Because like I'll tell you, like I watched it and I cackled when I saw the wife, and then the ending was so weird and I was like so disappointed because I was like, what? This is what you give me? And it felt so like AI. It really peeved me. And so we spent like 20 minutes cycling through like comments and reviews of the film because I was like, what am I missing? It's like, what do they watch that I didn't watch? Because I was like, they're really, like, for everyone to be so about it, I was like, I really have to be missing this. And I'll be honest, when we were going into it, I was like, when we cover this episode, like, it might be stressful because, I might be an outlier. I might be someone out here being like, this was trash. And I won't say that it's great. It's not my favorite film. It had the potential to have been something like that, especially with all the work that I see has gone into it. And knowing like, as absurd as the film is, it is not that far from reality, makes it that much more interesting. It just, the presentation is where it lost me and the ending. Yeah. I just think it like, it had a lot of thought went into other parts of it, and then it just kind of, they cut corners and lost me.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was like really enjoying it up until like the like scene where he's in his dream world, and then I was like, that was weird. And then I enjoyed like the ending where he like was murdering people, but like you don't get like. The middle is weird, and I was like, I don't understand why we needed that part specifically. Yeah, I enjoyed everything else, but that part I was like,
I wanted a little more. And like, there's like the ghosts in the reflections of the backseat scenes or whatever. I don't know. I felt like they were doing too much. They could have tightened that up a little bit. But can't win them all. But that was another episode of our Satanic Panic series. Tell us what you think about Late Night with the Devil. What's your favorite late night talk show host? Is it Jack Delroy? Did he deserve to top the charts? And yeah, tell us about your favorite Satanic Panic-y movies. We might be covering them. And remember to like and subscribe to help us out. And because we're doing spooky stuff. It's the month of spooky. So
if any time to tell us you love us, it's now.
Yeah. Send comments and stuff. But
cool.
Don't get married.
Delete your kids.